Simply economic, simply simply economics. Big ideas made small. Everyday money talk for any mind at all. Simply economics. Learn fast, feel smart. One quick listen and you're ready to start.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We're so glad you're here. Today we're going to get into something that honestly affects almost every business you interact with on a daily basis.
Yeah, it really does. It's one of those invisible forces.
Right. So I want you to imagine that you've spent, 10 years perfecting a business. Let's say it's a local cafe.
Okay, a cafe.
Yeah, and you've sweated over every single detail. Like you know exactly how the espresso should taste. You know exactly how the pastry case should look. Even how the customers should be greeted when they walk in the door.
You've got the whole vibe completely dialed in.
Exactly. And now you want to grow. You want to scale. But here is the unforgiving math of expansion. To truly scale up, you basically have to hand the keys over to a stranger.
Right, which is terrifying.
It is. Because you're handing it to someone whose own financial incentives might naturally encourage them to, well, cut corners,
right,
and slowly destroy the exact reputation you just spent a decade building.
Yeah, and that tension right there, that is what we're unpacking today. Based on some fascinating source notes we have called The Principal's Dilemma, Strategies for Brand Expansion.
The ultimate business tug-of-war.
That's a great way to put it. It's this agonizing choice between growing massive very quickly or staying small and perfect. And what I love about the source material is that it's not just about coffee shops or like espresso machines.
No, it's way bigger than that.
Right. It's a fundamental look at human behavior. It's about risk, control, and what happens when you try to scale a vision using other people's hands.
Because the very mechanisms you need to expand are often the exact same things that threaten the brand's survival, right?
Precisely. You run into a structural clash of priorities almost immediately.
So before we get into the deep psychology of why people act the way they do when, their own money is on the line, we kind of have to look at the mechanical choices a brand faces.
The literal paths they can take to grow.
Right. According to the notes, a business owner essentially stands at a crossroads. And the first path is direct ownership.
Which is exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah, the original creators of the cafe just build the second location themselves.
They secure the funding, they sign the lease, they hire the manager, they do everything.
They're buying the equipment. And the undeniable advantage here is absolute total quality control.
Because you own it. You dictate every single standard.
Down to the exact temperature of the milk, right?
Exactly. But there's a massive drawback. Direct ownership fundamentally limits how fast you can grow.
Because you're just one person.
Right. You only have so much working capital in the bank. You only have so many hours in the day to physically travel between locations to oversee the operations.
You become the bottleneck.
You do. Direct ownership is an essentially closed system. You are the sole variable. So your personal capacity is the permanent ceiling for the brand's growth.
Okay, let's unpack this with an analogy because I think it helps to visualize it. It sounds like throwing a dinner party.
Okay, I like where this is going.
So direct ownership is cooking every single dish yourself. You are in the kitchen for 2 days straight, stressing over the menu.
Chopping all the vegetables.
Exactly. And the quality is going to be absolutely perfect. The flavors will pair exactly how you envisioned in your head. But because it's just you cooking, you can only feed maybe, 10 people before you completely collapse from exhaustion.
Right, you have absolute control over the menu, but zero scale.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Zero scale, which forces most ambitious brands onto the second path, which is franchising.
Right. And franchising solves that personal bottleneck by leveraging two incredibly powerful forces: someone else's capital and someone else's local effort.
So you are basically taking on an operator who pays you for the right to use your brand.
Yeah, they pay for your trademark, your recipes, your operating system.
And that spreads the financial risk around.
Massively. It allows the brand to expand its footprint incredibly quickly. I mean, you can open 50 locations in a single year instead of just 2.
And you're doing it entirely on the back of outside investment. But going back to the analogy, franchising is throwing a potluck.
Oh, man, the potluck. Yes.
Right. You invite 100 people, and you tell them the theme of the party. You can feed a massive crowd easily, the scale is incredible, and hey, you didn't have to buy all the groceries.
Which is great for you.
But the terrifying risk is that someone brings a terrible store-bought potato salad. and it just completely ruins the vibe of your fancy party.
Yeah, someone brings something that just does not fit the standard.
Exactly. You sacrifice the absolute guarantee of quality for the ability to host a massive crowd.
I really love that analogy because that potluck risk is the exact fundamental reason why direct ownership always produces better outcomes when strict quality is the only metric of success you care about.
Right, if you have to be perfect, you can't have a potluck.
Exactly. If a brand's entire identity is built on this artisanal, flawless experience, inviting someone else to bring a dish to the table is inherently dangerous.
But the core problem with the potluck isn't just that, your friends are bad cooks.
No, it's deeper than that.
Right, it's that they don't care about the overarching reputation of the party the same way the host does.
Yes. And that exact friction is what economists call principal-agent theory.
Okay, this is the academic core of our deep dive today. Let's really get into this.
Let's do it. So this concept is the bedrock of the entire expansion dilemma outlined in the notes. In economics, this dynamic is split into two distinct roles.
Okay, lay them out for us.
First, you have the principal. This is the brand owner, the creator, the visionary, the person who dreamed up the cafe concept and holds the trademark.
The one who threw the party.
Exactly. Then you have the agent. And the agent is the franchisee. This is the independent operator who is running that brand new, far-flung location on a daily basis.
Okay, so the principal has the vision, and the agent is the one actually executing it on the ground.
Right.
Is this basically a babysitting dynamic?
A babysitting dynamic. Tell me more about that.
Okay, think about it. You are the parent. You are the principal. You hire a teenager to watch your kids. The teenager is the agent.
Okay, yep, I follow.
You both agree on the baseline premise that, the kids should be kept alive and the house shouldn't burn down.
Right, a baseline of survival is agreed upon, definitely.
But your primary goal as the parent is that the kids eat their vegetables, do their homework, and get to bed exactly at 8 p.m. because you want them well rested for the week.
That's your long-term standard.
Exactly. But the babysitter's primary goal is doing the absolute minimum required to keep the peace. So they can sit on your couch and watch TV or scroll on their phone.
Oh, absolutely.
Like they will happily let your kids stay up until 9 p.m. eating candy if it means they don't have to deal with a tantrum.
Right.
They aren't malicious. They aren't trying to ruin your kids' lives. They just have a totally different set of immediate priorities.
What's fascinating here is that the divergence in perspectives is entirely structural. It's built into the roles.
How so?
Well, the parent in your analogy cares about the long-term, holistic health of the enterprise. They are thinking in terms of years and decades.
Right, building a legacy.
But the agent, the babysitter, or the franchisee is operating on a completely different time horizon. They are primarily focused on their own immediate, localized operational reality.
I mean, this happens in so many areas of life, not just business or babysitting.
Oh, everywhere.
Like anyone listening who has hired a contractor to renovate their kitchen has experienced this exact mismatch of incentives.
Oh, for sure.
You are the principal, and you want the plumbing installed perfectly so the pipes don't leak 10 years from now.
But the contractor is the agent.
Exactly. And they want to finish the job as quickly as possible so they can get paid and move on to the next house tomorrow.
The horizons just fundamentally clash. The principal wants the brand to be globally respected for decades. The agent wants to maximize the cash in their own register this specific week.
So because the principal and the agent have these vastly different immediate priorities,
Yeah.
we hit the central risk highlighted in the text, right?
Yes. The danger of the agent going rogue.
Going rogue, it sounds so dramatic. But when franchisees control local operations, the danger is that they may misalign with the brand standard.
Right, they start cutting corners.
They ignore the recipe. They swap out the expensive pastry supplier for some cheaper local alternative.
And we really need to define what going rogue actually means in a franchise context.
Yeah, let's clarify that.
Because it rarely looks like a dramatic, explosive rebellion. It's not a coup.
Right.
It looks like 1,000 tiny, highly rational economic choices that benefit the franchisee at the expense of the principal's vision.
Okay, but here's where I have to play devil's advocate and challenge this logic.
Let's hear it.
On the surface, the idea of a rogue franchisee purposely degrading the product just doesn't make logical sense to me.
Why not?
Well, doesn't the franchisee want the cafe to succeed? Like, they invested their own life savings to open this location. They signed a 10-year lease.
True.
If they start cutting corners and serving bad coffee or stale pastries just to save a few bucks, they're going to lose their own local customers.
It seems like self-sabotage.
Right. Why would an agent ever purposely misalign with the brand standards if it ultimately destroys their own local business? It seems entirely irrational.
I get why it looks that way,
Yeah.
but to understand why it's actually completely rational from their perspective, we have to look really closely at how risk and reward are distributed.
Okay, walk me through it.
Let's run the actual math on a localized decision. Imagine that franchise decides to stop buying the approved high-quality coffee beans required by the principal.
All right, good stuff.
Right. And instead, they secretly start buying beans from a local supplier that are, let's say, 20% cheaper.
Okay, pretty standard cost-cutting move.
Now, who captures the benefit of that specific decision?
Well, the franchise does. Their localized overhead drops immediately.
Yep.
Which means their profit margin on every single cup of coffee goes up.
Exactly. The franchise captures 100% of the immediate cost savings. Every single dollar saved goes straight into their pocket.
Okay, I see the incentive there.
But now let's trace the negative consequence. The customer buys that coffee. It tastes bitter, it's burnt, it's just not good. They are disappointed.
Right.
Who do they blame?
Ah, I see. They don't blame the specific, LLC that owns that one franchise location on 4th Street.
No, they don't.
They blame the massive logo on the side of the cup.
Exactly. The customer walks away thinking, wow, this brand has really gone downhill.
That's so true.
The damage to the reputation is entirely divorced from the individual who actually caused it. The reputational blow is spread out.
It's absorbed by the principal.
Yes. And is shared by every other franchisee across the entire global network.
Wow. The risk diffusion there is just staggering when you put it like that.
It really is.
The franchisee keeps 100% of the financial upside of cheating, but they only absorb a tiny fraction of a percent of the long-term brand damage.
And that structural reality is the absolute crux of the principal's dilemma. The temptation for a massive, immediate local gain almost always overpowers the desire to maintain the principal's global standard.
Because the math tells them to.
Exactly. The math essentially encourages the agent to slowly strip mine the brand's equity for their own short-term profit.
It's the babysitter letting the kids eat candy all night again.
It's the exact same thing.
The babysitter gets the immediate 100% benefit of a quiet, happy kid for those 3 hours. But the parent is the one who has to deal with the cavity at the dentist 6 months later.
Yep.
The punishment is completely disconnected from the crime.
This is exactly why franchising, while it is brilliant for rapid capital-efficient growth, introduces this incredibly dangerous operational vulnerability.
Because if it's left unmanaged, the agents are structurally incentivized to act in ways that erode the very foundation of the principal's business.
Right.
So wait, if direct ownership is entirely too slow,
Right.
and franchising is a terrifying gamble, where the underlying math basically encourages your partners to slowly destroy your reputation.
It paints a bleak picture.
Yeah. How does a brand ever successfully scale? It sounds like an unsolvable paradox.
It does sound like a trap, but it is solvable.
Okay, good.
But the solution requires moving beyond hope and into architecture. According to the source notes, the definitive answer to scaling successfully comes down to one critical practice:
Which is?
incentive design. Expansion succeeds only when the incentives of the principal and the agent are perfectly aligned.
Okay, incentive design. That sounds great in theory, but what does that actually mean in practice?
Whoa.
Because you can't just send a rogue franchisee a nicely worded email reminding them of the corporate values.
No, definitely not.
And you can't just hope they possess this really strong moral compass that will force them to ignore the math that tells them to buy cheaper beans.
Right. Hope is not a strategy.
So how do you actually structurally change the math? Let's break down the actual mechanism for our listeners.
Okay, so you have to build a system where the absolute easiest, most wildly profitable thing for the agent to do is exactly what the principal wants them to do anyway. You don't ask them to sacrifice their local profit for the good of the global brand. You engineer the franchise agreement so that maintaining the global brand standard is the only way they achieve maximum local profit.
Okay, give me a real-world example of how a principal actually engineers that. Like, how do you force a franchisee to buy the expensive, high-quality beans when the cheap ones are sitting right there in town?
You utilize structural levers, things like supply chain architecture or profit sharing tied to quality audits.
Walk me through the supply chain one.
Okay, so for instance, rather than simply charging a flat monthly franchise fee and leaving the franchise to purchase all their own supplies,
Right.
a principal might restructure the entire agreement. They might charge a slightly lower baseline royalty fee, but mandate that all core supplies, the proprietary coffee beans, the branded cups, the syrups, must be purchased directly through the corporate supply chain.
Oh, so the corporate office sells it to them at a fixed, slightly marked up rate.
Exactly.
Okay, but wait. What stops the franchisee
Yeah.
from just nodding, paying the lower royalty, and then still sneaking in the cheaper local beans to save even more money?
The mechanism of the fixed cost.
How does that work?
If you design the system so the franchisee pays a required, flat monthly operational fee that includes their baseline supply of corporate beans, right? They have already paid for the good stuff, regardless of whether they brew it or not.
Oh, wow. So if they go out and buy cheaper beans locally, they're literally paying twice.
Exactly. The incentive to cut the corner completely vanishes because you removed the cost-saving mechanism.
That is brilliant. You aren't fighting their natural desire to save money. You are actually using it.
You are.
But what about the customer experience, though? Like, I get how you can force them to use the right beans through supply chain pricing,
Right.
but you can't force a franchisee to, clean the bathrooms or smile at the customers using a supply chain fee.
No, you can't. That requires a different lever. And the text points to performance-based financial rebates.
Okay, how does a rebate work in this context?
Well, the principal might charge a standard, say, 6% royalty on all revenue, just a flat cut of the sales.
Or just standard?
But they introduce a mechanism where a franchise can earn back 2% of that royalty, which, by the way, translates to tens of thousands of dollars a year.
That's a lot of money.
It is. But they only earn it back if they consistently score above, say, a 95% on random, anonymous, secret shopper quality audits.
Oh, so the math shifts again.
Yes, dramatically.
If the franchise decides to cut staffing levels to save a few $100 on payroll,
Yep.
the cafe gets dirty, the service gets slow, the customers are grumpy,
Yep.
and then they fail the secret shopper audit.
Exactly. They saved $500 on their local payroll, but it just cost them $20,000 in lost corporate royalty rebates.
Wow. You make the wrong choice, mathematically catastrophic to their local bottom line.
You are actively harnessing human nature. You take that localized, self-interested drive of the agent, the desire to make their own location as wildly profitable as possible, and you build a track for it to run on.
A track that perfectly parallels the long-term vision of the principal.
Precisely. When the incentives are truly aligned, the dilemma dissolves.
Because the franchisee isn't keeping the cafe spotless and serving perfectly extracted espresso just because they are terrified of getting caught by corporate inspector.
No, they are doing it because the incentive structure makes absolute quality the most lucrative option for them personally.
The tension between the overarching decade-long reputation and the localized Friday night reality is finally resolved.
Because both horizons are finally pointing in the exact same direction.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have. It's a dense topic.
It is. But just to summarize for everyone listening, we started by looking at the basic mechanical crossroads every successful business faces when it decides to scale.
The choice between the slow, absolute control of direct ownership
Right, cooking the entire dinner party yourself.
and the rapid, capital-efficient, but risky growth of franchising. The unpredictable potluck.
And from there, we unpack the academic framework of the principal-agent theory, exploring that inherent friction between the visionary creator thinking in decades and the localized operator thinking in days.
We explored the terrifying math of risk diffusion, where a rogue franchisee can capture all the immediate financial benefits of cutting corners while simultaneously spreading the long-term reputational damage across the entire brand logo.
And finally, we landed on the ultimate key to successful expansion, which is the meticulous architecture of incentive design. The realization that you cannot just hope for alignment.
Right. You have to physically change the math so that the most selfish choice an operator can make is also the exact choice that protects the long-term vision of the brand. As we wrap up this analysis, I want you, the listener, to step out of the cafe for a second. Take a moment to look at the systems in your own life.
That's a great exercise.
Look at your career. Look at your team at work, the contractors you hire, or even the dynamic in your household. Where are you acting as the principal, trying to maintain a long-term vision? And where are you the agent, operating on the ground with immediate, localized pressures?
Are the incentives in your daily operations actually structurally aligned with the ultimate goals you want to achieve? Or are you unintentionally operating within a system that mathematically encourages people to bring a bad potato salad to your dinner party? It is a fantastic lens to evaluate any relationship where responsibility is delegated. And I actually want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to mull over.
Oh, I'm intrigued. Let's hear it.
Everything we explored today focused on the internal tension of a business. What happens when the franchise acts as the agent for the brand. But consider what happens when the consumer becomes the agent.
The consumer as the agent.
Right. In a world entirely driven by social media algorithms, everyday customers are basically acting as massive, unauthorized agents for a brand's reputation. Every single time they post a review, snap a photo, or record a video in a place of business,
Oh, wow, yeah.
they have total power over the localized perception of the brand, but they have zero long-term stake in its survival.
That's a terrifying thought for a brand owner.
It is. How on earth do you begin to design an incentive structure to align with a million random customers whose only localized reality is trying to go viral?
That is a whole other level of the principal's dilemma.
It really is. Think about that next time you order your coffee. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.
That brings us to the end of today's episode of Simply Economics. We hope this discussion helped make today's economic concept clearer and more relevant to real life. If you found this episode useful, feel free to share it with others who are interested in understanding economics beyond the textbook. You can find Simply Economics on YouTube, Spotify, and Podbean. In our next episode, we'll continue exploring how economic theory applies to everyday decisions and real-world markets. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Simply Economics.